Most people drive past rest stops. You drive through them slowly, looking at the seals on the trailer doors. You've been watching rest stops for 3 weeks before you take anything. Level 1. The rest stop. You've driven the same 3 highway corridors enough times to know which stops see the most unattended trailers between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., which routes carry electronics and appliances, which drivers sleep 6 hours, and which ones sleep 3. The pattern is there if you look for it. Most people don't look for it. You do. Danny drives. That's the arrangement. You watch from the passenger seat while he keeps the van moving through the lot without stopping, slow enough to read the company names on the trailers, slow enough to check the seals on the doors. You've been doing this long enough to read a seal in 3 seconds and know whether what's inside is worth stopping for. I-40. 2:47 a.m. 6 trailers in a row at the far end of the lot, away from the lights. You get out. You walk the line. 3 are groceries. You can tell from the refrigeration units running on the side. 1 is auto parts. 1 has no manifest visible at all, which means either it's empty or the driver pulled the paperwork inside, and either way it's not worth the risk. The 6th has a seal from an electronics distributor out of Memphis. You walk back to the van. The bolt cutter takes 4 seconds on the seal. You pull the door. Electronics. Consumer goods in flatbox retail packaging, branded cartons stacked on pallets. The kind of merchandise that moves fast because everyone recognizes it and nobody asks too many questions about where it came from. You and Danny load for 22 minutes. You know the weight limit of the van and you work up to it precisely. Before you close the door, you put a replacement lock through the hasp. Same color, same style as the manufacturer lock. Close enough that a driver doing a quick visual check in the morning won't notice anything wrong. You drive away before 3:15. The driver files a theft report at 7:40 a.m. when he opens the trailer at the delivery dock in Phoenix. By then, the electronics are 3 states away in the back of Danny's garage. The flea market vendors don't ask questions. You've been selling to 3 of them for 2 months, and the arrangement is simple. You bring merchandise, they buy it at a price that works for both of you, and nobody discusses the supply chain. The I-40 electronics move across 4 days through vendors in 2 states. $40,000 of cargo becomes $11,000 in cash. You know the margin is bad. You also know the overhead is a bolt cutter and a van and a replacement lock that costs $8, and the driver didn't notice anything was wrong until morning. That ratio feels acceptable at this scale. The problem with this scale is that it doesn't grow. Every load depends on being in the right place at the right time with the right trailer in front of you, and you can't engineer any of those 3 things. Some nights you drive 4 hours across 2 states, and everything in the lot is groceries or nothing. Some nights you find 2 trailers worth taking, and the combined cash value barely covers the fuel and the wear on the van. The limit isn't the risk. The limit is the randomness. You can manage risk. You can't manage randomness. What you need is a way to know what's in the trailer before you drive to find it. You need the cargo to come to you instead of the other way around. You need someone on the other end of a phone who hands you a manifest before you leave the driveway, tells you exactly what's in the trailer, exactly where it's parked, exactly how long the driver sleeps. You need to be on the other side of the transaction, not the person looking for the load in the dark, but the person the load gets handed to at the dock in daylight. Danny doesn't think about any of this. Danny's focus is the next stop, the next lot, the next seal on the next trailer in the next lot off the next exit. He's good at the part of this that involves cutting a seal in 4 seconds in a dark parking lot in a van that doesn't attract attention. He's very good at that part. You've already moved past that part in your head. You just haven't told him yet, because you don't need him to think about it. You need him to drive. Level 2. The fake carrier. Cole runs a small freight brokerage out of a strip mall office 2 blocks from a logistics park. He matches shippers with carriers, takes a cut, files the paperwork. You watch how he works for a few weeks before you introduce yourself. Owner-operator, new to the area, looking for loads. Cole is helpful because helping new carriers find loads is exactly what Cole does. He explains the load board, the rate confirmation, the carrier packet, proof of delivery. You ask the right questions. You write nothing down. You don't need to. 11 days later you have a DOT number. Real MC authority. Real insurance certificate that costs $400 a year and covers a truck you don't own yet. A business address that forwards mail to a P.O. box. A company name that is 3 initials and the word freight, generic enough that nobody registers it as new. The whole registration costs $800. At the end of it, you have a carrier packet that looks like every other carrier packet Cole has ever processed, because it was built from the same paperwork Cole showed you. You find a load on the board. Medical equipment. Chicago to Atlanta. Rate of $3,800. You call the broker with the fake carrier name. You send the carrier packet. You rent a truck for 2 days, $340. You show up at the dock in Chicago with the rate confirmation printed on letterhead. The dock worker checks the paperwork. He checks the truck. He loads the cargo. You sign the bill of lading. You drive away from that dock with $180,000 worth of medical equipment that the shipper just handed to you because your paperwork said you were a carrier. Marcus runs a warehouse on the east side. Commercial storage on the ground floor, real tenants, real leases, nothing unusual from the street. The back section is available for cash with no questions about what goes in or how long it stays. Marcus takes 15% of whatever moves through his space. The medical equipment from Chicago arrives, gets broken down across 3 days, moves to secondary buyers before the broker in Atlanta calls the fake carrier number looking for a proof of delivery. The number is disconnected. The carrier packet goes into a fraud file. You are already looking at the next load. 3 loads in the first month. The second month is 6. The money is real and it arrives fast, and there's no rest stop, no dark lot, no bolt cutter involved. The third fake carrier gets flagged after 2 no-show deliveries, so you shut it down and register a new company the same afternoon. $800. Different 3 initials. Same word freight. Same carrier packet structure. The new company runs for 7 weeks before it draws enough complaints to become a problem. You register another one without breaking pace. The cycle is $800 in and $120,000 of cargo out. And the only overhead between those 2 numbers is a rented truck and Marcus's 15%. The dock workers don't question you. They've loaded hundreds of trucks this week, and yours is one more. The brokers process your carrier packet the same way they process every other packet in their inbox. Name, DOT number, insurance certificate, signature. They're matching loads to carriers, not investigating carriers. The shippers load your truck because you showed up on schedule with the correct paperwork and the truck fits in the bay. Nobody in the chain has a reason to look at you twice because you look exactly like the other carriers they work with every day. That's the whole thing. You aren't cutting seals in the dark anymore. You're being handed the cargo in broad daylight by people who loaded it themselves. The only difference between you and a legitimate carrier is what happens after you leave the dock. You still talk to Cole occasionally. He doesn't know what you're doing with the information he gave you. He thinks you're a small owner-operator finding your footing on the load boards, struggling with rates the way everyone does in the first year. You ask him questions sometimes. He answers them. You've never run a load through Cole's brokerage. You're careful about that. Cole is the person who taught you how the system works. You don't use what someone showed you against them directly. That's the only line you've drawn in this whole operation. And you haven't stopped to examine why you drew it or whether it means anything. Because the answer to that question isn't one you need right now. Level 3. Double brokering. You don't pick up loads anymore. You post as a broker. You take a load from a shipper, find a real carrier to run it, collect the shipper's payment, and disappear before anyone reconciles the paperwork. The carrier delivers the load successfully. The shipper pays. You pocket the full rate and never pay the carrier. The carrier then spends 2 weeks chasing a company name that doesn't exist at the address on the contract. You never touch the cargo. You never see it. You never drive to a dock or sign a bill of lading or look a dock worker in the eye. The whole transaction happens on a screen. The money moves before anyone knows it's gone. And by the time anyone realizes there's a problem, the company name on the contract has already gone dark. Cole doesn't know it yet, but his DOT number is being used across 4 states. You've copied his letters of authority, altered his insurance certificates, and built carrier packets that use his real registration number with a different contact address. Cole is at his strip mall desk, right now matching legitimate loads to legitimate carriers, while shippers in Ohio and Tennessee and Georgia are receiving paperwork that has his credentials on it. He'll find out when the complaint calls start coming in. Carriers he's never heard of telling him they ran a load under his authority and never got paid. Shippers asking him about deliveries he never booked. That conversation is still a few weeks away from Cole's perspective. From your perspective, it already happened, and you've moved on. At the peak of the operation, you're running 11 fake broker identities at the same time. Some are cloned from real brokers. Some are built from scratch the same way you built the fake carrier companies in L2, registration, documentation, a name generic enough to mean nothing. 43 loads move through the operation in a single month. The carriers deliver. The shippers pay. You collect the payment, and the identity goes dark. The money arrives through 7 different bank accounts, each one opened with different documentation, each one handling a different slice of the revenue, so no single account draws the kind of attention that one large account would. Marcus's warehouse is still running. Not every load gets financially intercepted. Some get physically diverted to the warehouse the same way they always did. Marcus handles the receiving end. He hasn't asked what changed about how the loads arrive or where they come from now. He's taking 15% and the loads are coming in, and that's all Marcus tracks. $600,000 a month. That's what the operation clears at its peak. The number is large enough that moving it cleanly takes as much time as generating it. You are not driving a van through rest stops at 3 a.m. anymore. You're sitting at a desk managing paperwork, and the money is coming in faster than you can move it cleanly through the 7 accounts. Danny got picked up 3 states over. Same rest stop method, same kind of van. A state trooper ran the plates during a traffic stop and found a prior theft report tied to the registration. Danny didn't call you. He called a lawyer. The lawyer negotiated. Danny gave the investigators the rest stop operation, your name, and 2 warehouse addresses, including Marcus's. You don't know any of this because Danny didn't call you. You find out the things Danny gave them much later. Not yet. A shipper in Detroit posts a load. Pharmaceutical equipment, Atlanta delivery, premium rate. You run it through one of the cloned broker identities. You find a carrier on the board and rebroker the load to them. The carrier picks up the load in Detroit. The load moves south toward Atlanta. You collect the payment. The carrier will chase a disconnected number for the next 2 weeks. What you don't know is that the shipper's loss prevention team has sewn a GPS tracker into one of the pallets. It's standard practice for pharmaceutical cargo above a certain value. The carrier doesn't know. The broker didn't disclose it. You don't know. The tracker doesn't care what you know. It's transmitting right now, sending a location signal from wherever that pallet is, and the pallet is at Marcus's warehouse. The pharmaceutical load came in 40 minutes ago. The pallet is in the back section. The tracker inside it has been transmitting since it left Detroit. It will keep transmitting until someone turns it off or finds it. Nobody in the warehouse knows it's there. Level 4. The tracker. The pharmaceutical equipment doesn't arrive in Atlanta on time. The consignee calls the shipper. The shipper calls the broker number on file, which is Cole's cloned identity, which goes to voicemail. The shipper's security team pulls the tracker. The signal comes back immediately. The pallet has been sitting in Marcus's warehouse for 6 days. The loss prevention team has the exact address. They call the local police. The local police call the FBI Cargo Theft Task Force. Agent Ford gets the case. He goes to Marcus's warehouse first because that's where the tracker says to go. He arrives with local law enforcement and a federal warrant. Marcus is on site. The pharmaceutical pallet is back there. 43 other items from recent loads are also back there. Boxes, cartons, equipment cases, none of it belonging to Marcus and all of it belonging to someone else's shipment. Ford reads the warrant. Marcus's lawyer calls before Ford finishes reading it. Marcus starts cooperating within the hour. He doesn't have much loyalty to protect, and he knows it. Ford calls Cole's real number that same afternoon. Not the clone contact number. Cole's actual registered business line, the one that appears on the legitimate DOT filing. Cole answers. He spends 40 minutes telling Ford things Ford is very interested to hear. Cole has never heard of 11 of the loads Ford is describing. His DOT number has been used across 4 states without his knowledge. He has been receiving complaint calls from carriers he has never contracted with for 6 months and couldn't figure out where they were coming from. Cole gives Ford everything. His real transaction records, his legitimate load history, every complaint call he logged, the gap between his actual business and the fake version of it that ran alongside it for months. Cole's records are the cleanest evidence Ford has because they show exactly what the operation was doing by showing everything it wasn't supposed to be. Then Ford checks Danny's arrest report. Danny was 3 states away when he got picked up. He was running the old rest stop method. A trooper stopped him, checked the plates, and matched the van to a theft complaint on file. Danny cooperated fully. He didn't hold anything back. Danny was picked up 3 weeks before the pharmaceutical load was flagged. He cooperated immediately. He handed over the rest stop details, Marcus's warehouse address among 2 others, and your name. Ford has 3 threads in front of him. Marcus's warehouse connects to 11 fake broker identities. Cole's cloned credentials connect to 43 fraudulent loads across 4 states. Danny's cooperation connects to your name, your van, and the warehouses. The 3 threads don't need separate investigation. They already point at the same person. Ford opens the arrest warrant. Thursday, 7:14 a.m., you're at home. The load board is open on the laptop. You're checking a new posting out of Cincinnati when the knock comes. Agent Ford and 3 others. You open the door. The charges cover everything. Theft from interstate shipment. Wire fraud across 7 bank accounts. Identity fraud using Cole's DOT credentials. Conspiracy to commit freight fraud. The pharmaceutical load is the originating event on the warrant, but it's not the reason the case is as complete as it is. The reason it's complete is Marcus cooperated in the first hour. Cole gave Ford 6 months of complaint records. Danny gave them your name 3 weeks before anyone pulled the tracker. The tracker led to Marcus. Marcus led to the operation. Danny had already drawn the map before the tracker fired. The load you never touched is what started it. You never drove to Detroit. You never saw the pallet. You never knew the tracker was in it. You were at a desk when the pharmaceutical equipment left Detroit, and you were at a desk when it arrived at Marcus's warehouse, and you were at a desk when the signal started transmitting, and you were at a desk when Agent Ford was assigned the case, and you were at a desk when he drove to the warehouse, and you were still at a desk on Thursday morning when the knock came at 7:14. The cargo found its way home. So did you. The pharmaceutical load reached Marcus's warehouse 40 minutes before the security team pulled the tracker. You had the payment from the Detroit shipper in one of the 7 accounts before the pallet reached the back section. Everything moved exactly the way the operation was designed to move. The only thing that moved differently was the signal inside the pallet. That part moved the whole time. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, share it, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next level.